Bordeaux. It's one of the most famous wine regions on the planet, but it's not just about fancy big price tags. So join me today as we explore 5 things that I really think you need to know about Bordeaux. It's true. Eleanor of Aquitaine married Henry Plantagenet, and just a few years later, in 1154, he became the King of England. This meant that he ruled and oversaw a lot of France, including Bordeaux. 3 centuries passed by under this reign, until in 1452, it was very courteously handed back to the French. Considering Bordeaux's wineries have been around since the 4th century, chateaux were quite a late phenomenon. They came about in the 18th century when a lot of winery owners who were making a lot of money thought that they needed to do something slightly different from a luxury and marketing appeal, and thus the chateaux were born. A famous Latin poet named Sonias had written about wine during this time in Bordeaux, about how he had vines, about how he grew his grapes, and even about how he liked to get a little bit drunk sometimes too. Turns out, this chap lived on the exact plot that Chateau Ausson now is named after. And there you have it. His writings from 4th century gave proof that wine was being made in Bordeaux. Our next point takes us all the way to Margaux, arguably the most famous wine-growing region in the whole of Bordeaux, and home to some of the most famous wineries. It turns out originally the Margaux was just marshland used for growing corn, but in the mid-17th century when the Dutch came over and took a big interest in the wines, they decided to drain all of this land out. Now, today, we have wineries like Chateau Latour, Lafite, and Margaux, who are producing some of the most famous renowned wines across the world. But if it wasn't for the Dutch, this probably would have never been. Our next fact is all about a man you've probably heard of, but you don't know the history. Baron Philippe de Rothschild. Turns out in 1927 he had a particularly bad vintage, and so he tried to sell all of his wine as a second label, but it didn't really work. No one knew what it was, no one wanted to buy it. Alas, he didn't give up, and in 1930, just 3 years later, he thought, I'm going to have another crack at this, but I'm going to buy excess wine from all across the region, and thus, Mouton Cadet was born. To this day, Mouton Cadet is one of the most widely distributed wines across the planet, selling millions of cases every single year in over 150 countries. Well, there you have it. 5 things you probably never knew about Bordeaux. I think I'll go get my own glass.